If the last few years have taught us anything, it's that stress and anxiety can cause a lot of harm to us both mentally and physically. Stress contributes to poor sleep, fatigue, and mental fogginess. So how do we prevent or reverse this? Well, Organifi Harmony was created to support women specifically. Harmony combines 12 superfood ingredients into a delicious cacao and chocolate flavored blend that promotes better balanced hormones every day for improved women's health. I have started drinking Organifi Harmony almost every single morning instead of coffee. I just add a scoop to hot almond milk, stir with a spoon, and I know I'm giving my body the good fuel that it needs. Organifi is a line of organic superfood blends that offers plant-based nutrition and high-quality ingredients and less than 3 grams of sugar, helping you move from a depleted to nourished state. You can enjoy any time of the day for more energy, nutrition, hormone balance, and peace of mind. It's a great way to jumpstart your morning, energize your afternoon, or nourish your evening. And the best part is that you can experience Organifi's high-quality superfoods without breaking the bank with a price that works out to less than $3 a day. Head over to www.organifi.com/bestofyou and use code bestofyou for 20% off your entire order. That's www.organifi.com/bestofyou. Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Allison, and I'm so glad you're here to discover what brings out the best of you. This podcast is all about breaking free from painful patterns, mending the past, and discovering our true selves in God. I can't wait to get started as we learn together how to become the best version of who we are with God's help. Hey everyone, and welcome back to this week's episode of the Best of You podcast. I am so thrilled you are here today. We have a very special guest joining us who I know you're going to love. She's amazing. She's so wise, so practical. She tells such great illustrations about how to apply the work that she does. And together we're going to dive into a topic that I find super helpful and incredibly practical. It's the Enneagram, especially as it applies to the work of being a mom. Now, before we get started with today's episode, if you're not familiar with the Enneagram, please go back and listen to episode 52, where we provide a complete overview of each of the 9 types. You can also check out episode 109, where my guest, Tammy Sollenberger, talks about her Enneagram number as one part of who she is and how she learned to integrate it with her overall story. Our guest today, Beth McCord, is a renowned Enneagram coach, speaker, and author. She has spent over 20 years studying and teaching the Enneagram, and her passion for helping people understand themselves and others through this powerful tool is so incredible. Beth's approach is both compassionate and insightful, and she integrates all of her work with the Enneagram with a gospel-centered perspective. Everything Beth does is infused with a Christ-centered approach. And the other thing I love about Beth, in addition to just being a great friend and an amazing person, is that she integrates the Enneagram with an awareness of the internal parts of our souls. In fact, she and I have conducted a workshop together that combined the Enneagram with parts work, which has been incredibly transformative for so many people. And her previous book, More Than Your Number, lays out this integrated process of viewing your Enneagram number as one part of who you are really powerfully. Today, Beth is here to talk to us about her brand new book, dropping this week. It's called Enneagram for Moms. This book is an absolute game changer for mothers everywhere. It offers such a unique perspective on how understanding your own Enneagram type can help you navigate the challenges and joys and struggles of motherhood wisely. Whether you're dealing with the daily stressors of parenting, whether you're trying to seek greater understanding of your children, or you're trying to understand your own reactions to your children, Beth's insights are so helpful. Beth McCord is an accomplished Enneagram speaker, author, coach, and teacher with over 2 decades of experience. And if you're interested in learning more about your own Enneagram number, please go to Beth's website. It's www.yourenneagramcoach.com. There's a free assessment. It's one of the best assessments I've found. It really helped me identify my own Enneagram number. You can go to her website and take that Enneagram assessment for free. I am so thrilled to bring you my conversation with Beth McCord. I'm so thrilled to have you here today, Beth. I'm such a big fan of your work, of you as a person. It's just been so fun to get to know you these past few years. And this is your first time on the podcast. So thanks for being here.
Oh, my pleasure. Yes. And like I told you earlier, I'm in the middle of your book. And so I'm really enjoying it and can't wait to keep plugging along and seeing how it's going to be so helpful and effective for myself. So thank you for writing the book.
I love that. We tend to trade books and read each other's books, and there's so much synergy and so much overlap in what we both do from different angles. So I am just so excited to dive into the Enneagram for moms. This is so fresh. I learned so much from this. I've read a lot about the Enneagram, a lot of your work, and this is just a really beautiful, unique take on it that's so gentle and so wise. And so I want to start, Beth, with your story, because I know so much of your work grows out of your own experience of learning and growing. And as a young mom, you talk about some of the things that were hard for you, that were challenging for you. Put us back there a little bit early on as a young mom. What are some of the things you wrestled with and struggled with early on that you couldn't have even anticipated?
So yeah, because I was all about I want to be a mom, that's what I want to be. And really thought it was going to be amazing. And I don't know if I would have said easy, but amazing, but I didn't know myself really well when I started to have the kids. The Enneagram didn't come into my life until my daughter was about 1 year old, and she's now 23. So when I started with the kids, I really didn't know, but I was really struggling with a lot of type 9 tendencies, which makes sense, where I was consumed with people pleasing to various levels. And so my heart felt like, oh, I'm being, so accommodating and helpful, and I'm wanting my kids to be happy. And that, in one sense, is a great quality, but it also, when it's all consuming, you can't make children happy most of the time. And so I took that as I must be being a bad mom, or why can't I figure this out? Or why is he crying all the time? And so then I would go out to the playground, because Jeff was in seminary at the time, and I'd go out to the playground, and, the kids at that point were still really little. So I was, observing moms that had a little bit older kids, running around the playground, but they just seemed perfectly amazing. All of them. Now they all were totally different. Some were super creative. Someone were really soft with their kids. Some were gregarious, some were creative. I mean, there's just a wide range, but I would just look at all of them and admire them and be in my mind, why can't I be a great mom like that? And I would come home and I would tell Jeff, kind of what I was feeling. And thankfully, he was really in tune with who I was, probably way more than I was with myself. I'd have a hard time knowing themselves. And he said, Beth, you're bringing all of these incredible aspects of each of these moms, which, by the way, Beth, they're probably putting on their best performance when they're at the playground, but you're bringing in all of these incredible qualities of each of them and creating one big super mom that you think you should be and live up to. And that was a big turning point for me. It helped me to realize, oh, yeah. Now, I didn't have the language back then, but had I had the Enneagram language, I'd been like, you're right. I am not a type 8. I am not a type 4. I am not a type 5. Those aren't the paths for me. And that's okay. God created me to be this mom for these children. But I just didn't have the understanding back then. So I was highly anxious and just really kind of in that comparison world, thinking I should be this or should be that. And even in the Christian world, there's a lot of shoulds. And then we didn't have social media back then, but I'm sure had I been on social media, I would have been swallowed up with oh, wait, I should be like that and this and that. And I would have been pulled in 1,000 different directions. And so that's probably one of the biggest reasons why I struggled so much. And I know a lot of moms do too, not just being a type 9, though us type 9s definitely want to be a little bit of all things. I think all of us moms struggle to some degree with either comparison or what is the best right way to be a parent. And we have our own framework in our mind that we're trying to live up to. And so this book is really written out of an overflow of my own heart for myself and what I struggled with, the things I wish I would have been told or brought to my attention back in the day. Because if we live in fear and shame and guilt, it is not going to be the best way to parent. And I want moms to first recognize God created you uniquely to be you, your personality type for your kiddos. You have your own story. You have your own way of seeing the world. And we need to do our own work with the framework God gave us, the way we see the world, in light of His truth for our kiddos. And I'm a type 9, but if I'm sitting next to 3 other type 9s, they might have kids that are completely different Enneagram types, have completely different needs. And so their story is even unique to them. And so I wanted this book to be full of non-judgment, grace, receptivity, attunement, validation. Like, I see you for the type you are. Here are your great strengths. This is where you excel. And yes, when you're struggling, here's what it looks like, but not to bring shame, not to bring condemnation, but as a rumble strip on the highway that alerts you, you know what? Yeah, when you're doing this, you're probably unaware. You're starting to get into an autopilot mode and you're veering off course. And we want you to be alert, not to shame, because if we shame ourselves and guilt ourselves, it's like taking the wheel and just kind of plowing right into the ditch. I know I do it all the time. Versus, oh, okay, yep, I'm struggling, or yep, that's a pattern I have, but God has also given me healthy qualities and I'm going to get back into the healthy direction for my personality type, not the type everyone else wants me to be or the type I think I should be. So that's really the backbone of why I wrote the book, was to really write it to my younger self.
One of the things I love about the book and about the Enneagram and about your work is it's a naming tool. And I think about even in I Shouldn't Feel This Way, right? There's this sort of meta name, frame, brave. And I think the Enneagram, when I'm listening to you, I think to myself, I can imagine when you're this young mom, and I want to hear, when did you get introduced to the Enneagram? But it's such a fantastic naming device, right? Like, oh, I'm this. This is a description of a personality type that's different from this other mom I see on the playground. And so even just right there, there's a name for something that helps you to frame that, okay, I may never be the mom who is, whatever the thing is. And I love in the book, you really go through that, right? One of the things you're really gifted at is using that naming device, again, without shame, but then to kind of show that metaphor of the rumble strip, right? This is where, when I'm doing really well as this type 9, this is what it looks like when I'm starting to hit those rough patches. Here are the behaviors that start to bubble to the surface. Tell me a little bit about, first of all, when you discovered that. How did that come into your life, that language, that naming tool?
Yeah, so I would say the naming tool really came in with the Enneagram, because I didn't even really know what it looks like to go inward. So I got married at 20. I had Nate at 23 and Libby at 25. I was super young. I'm just living life on autopilot. And that is some days, if not a lot of days, I was careening off course and into the ditch, and then kind of throwing up my hands going, what is going on? Why is it like this? And Jeff was too. Even though we were best friends and still are and love each other, we had a lot of turbulence, and, he needed to get to know his own self, but I needed understanding. So in 2001 is when I was introduced to the Enneagram. So way back before it was, a popular thing. And I devoured it. I see patterns, especially with the Enneagram, really easily. And so it just made sense. I tell people it's kind of like when you see the movie The Matrix and there's that screen with the green, digits going down and people are like seeing something and you're like, what are you seeing? And that's kind of how I feel with the Enneagram. I just see it. I just get it. And I found my type right away and it was so relieving. Now, a lot of people can think, well, I don't want to be labeled. The Enneagram doesn't label you. It helps you to understand the framework through which, or the lens through which you see the world, you interpret the world, and why you react to it through your feelings, thoughts, and behaviors. So if I'm going to operate like an algorithm, I'm going to operate a very specific way, and that way can be either healthy all the way to unhealthy. But that is the lens and the path through which I see. Then I can go, oh, okay, these are like my bumper lanes. This is Beth McCord. So as a mom, I'm going to have these tendencies, healthy tendencies, less healthy, and unhealthy tendencies. And by naming it, but using it with the gospel was so helpful. And I remember one time, and I hope this is really encouraging to moms, because what usually happens is we start reading the Enneagram and it's like, ooh, this is amazing. Like it's like a camera in my soul. Like, how do they know it? But then all of a sudden, we start seeing the weaknesses or the liabilities of our personality. And it just becomes a neon sign, like it's all we can see. And all of a sudden, shame and guilt come in. I don't like my personality. Why is this so hard? That's very natural. But when you bring the gospel in, what you recognize is, Christ has not only forgiven my past, present, and future sins, he has put on me his righteousness, so that when God looks at me, he sees me whole and complete in Christ. When you have that framework in your mind, then when you look at the levels of health for your Enneagram type, and it's hard to look at the average to the unhealthy, you recognize I am always his beloved child, no matter where I'm at in these levels of health. My status, my relationship with Christ never changes. So that helps me to look at that with a lot more grace and freedom to know I am going to mess up on this side of heaven. He's not surprised by that. In fact, that's why he came. And it's also not, freedom to go, well, going to have a bad day, too bad kids, just deal with it. No, he calls us to renew ourselves, to renew our mind, to become more like Christ. But he's the one that's going to work in and through us when we surrender and depend on him. So by looking at the different levels, and I see myself, let's say, in the average, in the unhealthy place, that's the time to not shame, not guilt, but to come to Christ and say, I need you again. I need you to renew me. I need you to help me to come back to a healthier place for the personality type that you have created me to be for myself and my kiddos. And that's the first step of him working in and through us. It's that dependency and surrender that he is really looking for. Our mustering up and pulling our bootstraps up, we've all tried that. It is literally surrendering, depending on him. That's the first step. Now, of course, we do our work for sure, but it's that position that we come in and really enjoying the personality that he gave us, because our personality is a reflection of him when we're at our healthiest. And so we can champion ourselves because he's the one that designed us.
I love that. You focus so much. You've even developed this framework, this aware framework that really emphasizes everything you're saying, this self-awareness component, that the Enneagram is almost like this mirror. And I love what you're saying, that when we pair it with that sense of our belovedness, it allows us to even look at those parts of the reflections in the mirror that aren't so wonderful. It'd be really hard to do that apart from the love of God. Do you struggle with sleeping through the night, or do you experience low energy during the day? If so, it's possible that, like 75% of American adults, you might be deficient in magnesium. Magnesium is a mineral that's essential to hundreds of functions in the body, and a deficiency in magnesium is a root cause of a whole host of modern ailments, from anxiety and depression to insomnia and stress. Enter Mellow Magnesium. It's a powerful daily super blend that contains the 3 most bioavailable and nutrient-dense forms of magnesium on Earth. Ned spent over 3 years developing their best-selling Mellow Magnesium Super Blend, a quest that took them from the hallowed halls of MIT to the rocky fjords of Iceland to the frigid waters of the Irish Sea. These guys literally went to the ends of the earth to create the best magnesium supplement on the planet. Become the best version of yourself and get 15% off Ned products with code BESTOFYOU. Go to helloned.com/bestofyou or enter code BESTOFYOU at checkout. That's HELLONED.com/bestofyou to get 15% off. Americans spend an average of 90% of their time indoors and take about 20,000 breaths a day. The indoor air that we breathe is 2 to 5 times more polluted than outdoor air, and in some cases up to 100 times more polluted, according to the EPA. And did you know that air pollution is responsible for nearly 7 million premature deaths globally? So what's the solution? Introducing an air purifier that captured the attention of established media outlets such as CNN, Money, ABC, and more. Air Doctor filters out 99% of dangerous contaminants so your lungs don't have to. This includes pollutants such as allergens, pollen, pet dander, dust mites, mold spores, and even bacteria and viruses that make you sick. Air Doctor comes with a 30-day breathe-easy money-back guarantee. So if you don't love it, just send it back for a refund minus shipping. Head to airdoctorpro.com and use promo code BESTOFYOU. You'll receive up to $300 off air purifiers. Exclusive to podcast customers, you will also receive a free 3-year warranty on any unit, which is an additional $84 value. Lock this special offer by going to airdoctorpro.com, that's AIRDOCTORPRO.com, and use promo code BESTOFYOU. So walk us through that aware framework as moms, as parents. How does that help us? And even in your own life, as you began to implement your understanding of yourself as a type 9, how did that becoming more aware change your parenting?
Yeah. So aware, the acronym aware that we use, if you've been in any of our books, it's there everywhere. So the first letter is A, which is awaken. The second letter is W for welcome. And then A is for ask, R is receive, and E is engage. So I'll kind of walk through those real quickly. So A is awaken to yourself, your thoughts, your feelings, and your body inclinations. They're all going to give us kind of this alert system, what's going on. And as moms, we get activated a lot. Now, it can go into that trigger mode. Maybe you have trauma in your past and maybe something's even triggering you, but we get activated all the time. And I just want moms to hear first and foremost, getting activated and triggered is not wrong or a sin. It's life. It's what we do with it that makes the difference. So we want to become awakened to what activates and triggers us and why. And that's what the Enneagram is all about. Why is that triggering you? And the Enneagram helps us to know why we think, feel, and behave. What are those core motivations behind the scenes? So, and you guys will learn all of that in the book. What are those core motivations for all 9 types? But we want to become awakened to it. So for me as a type 9 mom, I just wanted peace and harmony. How is this so hard? Can't everyone just be happy and get along? I just had this vision and it would be super easy. I'll just make everyone happy and it's going to be great. And that's just not how life is. And so when the kids would whine or fight or struggle, I would get all anxious inside and almost kind of want to force people to be happy or force people to be peaceable. And so I had to awaken to those tendencies. But then the second step is welcome. I needed to welcome the understanding of who I am and why I'm doing these things with grace and compassion, to be receptive and non-judgmental of myself. Those 2 are huge steps. And then once you're in that place of not judging or criticizing yourself, which, hey, it is really hard. That is a very hard place to be. But when we're there, we can start to ask. That's the second A. Ask for what is true, whether that's getting feedback from people, maybe it's reading a book. I mean, I'm telling you, your books, all 3 of them, have been revolutionary to my life. I mean, Boundaries for your soul, that's when I contacted you. I'm like, I have got to know this person. And so we'll ask for what's true. And then we go into the R, which is receive. Receive what's true, which can be really hard. And that's where the Enneagram comes in, because we're seeing our great strengths and our weaknesses. And we've got to receive that. And if we're in that non-judgmental state and we know that Christ has us, it's a lot easier. It's not like easy, but it'll be easier. And then we can move into the last letter, which is E. And that's where we can now engage in life and relationships in a new way, because we're seeing things differently. We're understanding life differently. We're more self-regulated because we understand, first and foremost, we are beloved, we're safe, we're secure in the finished work of Christ. Therefore, it's going to be a mess here and there, but He's got us. And we can walk out this awareness with our kids. And in fact, the more we walk that out with grace and compassion for ourselves, our kids are going to see that and then model that themselves. And really, that is the greatest gift you can give your kids, for them to know themselves, understand that they have strengths and weaknesses. They're going to have good days and bad days, and it is going to be okay. But we do move in a forward progress, learning about ourselves.
That's so good. It's not a linear line up. There's a lot of up and down, but we are moving in the right direction. I love how honest you are as a type 9. And I think it's really relatable to so many women, what you were saying about just wanting everybody to get along, wanting peace and harmony. As you awakened, as you began to implement this growing awareness, how did it change how you showed up with your kids when they were fighting, or when there was chaos, or when there was turbulence? How did that change how you show up in those situations? Because like you said, I'm sure you still felt it. I'm sure you still got activated.
Oh, 100%. I'll give you a couple stories. When they were little, so, Jeff, would be wrestling with them on the floor, and they were having so much fun, and my eyes are seeing how wonderful this is. But my body was screaming at me, like, you've got to put a stop to this, because it was feeling chaos. The body didn't understand what was going on. And it kind of goes back to my own story. I was teased a lot as a little girl. And so any kind of teasing or joking or playing or tickling just meant to me, everything's on the verge of someone getting upset. So I had to understand that and watch, my kids and literally mentally go, this is okay. Now, there were times I could stay in the moment, feel a little uncomfortable inside, but know that this is okay. There were other times I had to literally physically remove myself because I wasn't in a place that could handle that, but I also didn't want to disrupt the fun that they were having. And then there's times where I can't remove myself and I'm just in a really vulnerable place, and I needed to ask Jeff to maybe stop for a while until I was in a better place, and then they could go back at it. Now, that sounds really simple, but it's not. My typical way was shaming myself. They're having fun. Why can't you just be a good mom? And so again, you got to go through that aware process. I had to receive and welcome and do all the things to understand that being activated wasn't a bad thing, but I have choices in new ways.
It's a great example. And I think, again, what's so relatable about what you share in the book and what you're sharing right now is you would tend towards self-shame.
Well, yes, and I would also blame others. Like, if you would just be happy, if you would just not whine, I wouldn't feel so activated. Why can't you just be a happy-go-lucky child? So it was a both and, for sure.
I love the honesty. Yeah, it's fair. What I love about the framework and the robustness of it is it makes sense, because this is what's so hard about this work of becoming more self-aware. And I think the Enneagram, and I think what you're doing in this book is such a helpful tool, because it's complicated, right? You become aware of I'm activated. And then that ask is, what's really true? Like, is something outside of me happening that I need to address? Or in the case you offered, actually, is what's happening outside of me really healthy? It's great for them. My kids are happy. They love it. I'm the one that's uncomfortable. That takes a minute to discern. And when you're activated, it's hard to do, right? And so there really is this whole process, and you can't even do that discernment if you're shaming yourself or blaming someone else. And so, yeah, it makes so much sense that it's really developing that posture of it's going to take me a minute. And it's not simple. As you said, it's not simple.
And it's ongoing. So now that my kids are older, if we go out to dinner, my husband's a counterphobic 6, which means, he can be kind of strong and blunt at times. And my son is a social 6, but he's a young guy. So he can actually be a little provocative too. And my daughter's a 2. And so she can bring in a lot of that strength of an 8. And so they at times have a lot of fun bantering, joking, sarcasm, or even debating, their viewpoints. And they're having fun. They're okay. But everything in me, even as they're adults now, says the same thing for when they were wrestling on the floor. And because I can remember we were at Cheesecake Factory one day and this was happening. And I am feeling like we're on the verge of conflict or something bad's going to happen. And I knew that. And there's times that I'm just like, guys, please stop, and I'm not aware and I'm just reactive. But in this one instance, I was like, okay, wait. And I kind of remembered, when they were kids. And so I just asked them, I go, guys, I am really physically uncomfortable right now. I am fearful. And they were like, Mom, we totally, because they grew up with the Enneagram. Mom, we totally get that. That makes total sense. But we're having a great time. Like, we're totally fine. And I'm looking at all of them, like, checking, like, really? Like, you're okay with this? You're okay with this? You're okay with this? And they're like, yeah, this is great. And I'm literally just blown away. Now, I will say, I was like, okay, I'm going to trust. I'm going to receive this. And then I'm going to try to engage in a new way. And I tried to sit there for a little bit longer as they kept going, but I couldn't self-regulate. I couldn't. So I just said, hey, I'm trying really hard just to let you guys be you, but I'm really struggling. Can we just change the topic or do something different? And they were so kind and accommodating because they knew I was trying and they knew I could see what was true. But my body just, in my mind and my spirit, just couldn't align with the fun they were having. And I feel very fortunate that they were able to move in my direction as well.
Gosh, this is it's so helpful. I'm just listening to you going, especially with adult kids, right? Because as they become older, it is different. There is a familial negotiation that can occur, and it's so delicate in the sense of, and I think about, you read Boundaries for Your Soul and you really appreciate the parts model. You think about that family system where you're negotiating between parts. It's such a great example in your own family where you've got these adult kids who are like, we're having a blast. You're like, this isn't fun for me. How do we negotiate it? There might be cases where you just say, hey guys, I'm going to excuse myself. You go on. There might be situations where you can actually sit there and go, okay, I'm going to try to enjoy this, and there might be situations where you're like, could we do something else? Could we bend toward me? And all of those 3 could be great options if everybody's very aware.
I mean, like there's times, and I was doing a podcast with Type 9 moms and we were all laughing because back in the day, we didn't have these AirPods with noise canceling. So I would literally use those swimmer wax earplugs when I couldn't get away physically. I needed to be present. And I would put those in halfway. So it just knocked the noise down a little bit. And nowadays, when they're kind of bantering and I want to still be a part, I'll sometimes put the AirPods in just to bring that volume and the intensity down so that my body can engage more than usual. And, there's going to be types or people out there that are like, that makes no sense at all. And I get it, especially from a Type 9. I can almost picture the other types going, that sounds like so much fun. Like Type 8s, they call it confrontational intimacy. They love that back and forth, that sparring. They feel intimate or connected with others. That scares me to death. But I'm also growing in, okay, how can I do that in a way that's good for me, but also helpful for others? So it's, again, the whole point of the book is knowing yourself as a mom. How did God create you uniquely with your Enneagram type, your story, and understanding that so that you are gracious and kind to yourself. When you're at that place, you're able to move in a healthier direction. And you're going to, like you said, it's not linear. It's up and down. I have been doing the Enneagram for 20 some years now. I'm still struggling. We were just talking about it before the podcast. I'm still in it, but there has been lots of progress. And there's lots of progress to keep, happening.
I mean, to me, the real fruit isn't, oh, we never struggle. The real fruit is we love each other. We're together. We're still having a blast together 20 years later. I mean, that's amazing fruit.
Yeah. And to know each other.
Our dogs love Sundays. I'm not kidding. One of our dogs was the slowest eater on earth for the first several years of her life. It was painful how long it would take her to eat. The minute we introduced her to Sundays, she just laps it up. She loves it. Sundays is healthy dog food that's easy to store and serve. Most foods are one or the other, but Sundays is both. It's fresh dog food made from a short list of human-grade ingredients that contains 90% meat, 10% superfoods, and 0% synthetic nutrients. But unlike other fresh dog food, it doesn't require refrigeration or preparation. It's air-dried, so you simply pour and serve. It's so easy. Get 40% off your first order of Sundays. Go to sundaysfordogs.com/bestofyou or use code bestofyou at checkout. I love that I can get my favorite Purely Elizabeth granola auto-shipped to my front door every month, along with my favorite 7th generation paper products. Thrive Market only allows trusted, top-quality ingredients while restricting over 1,000 harmful ingredients like artificial flavors, high fructose corn syrup, and more. Whether you're looking for organic kid snacks, low-sugar alternatives, or high-protein essentials, you can curate your own shopping experience with just a few clicks and trust that you're getting quality products so you can shop worry-free. When you join Thrive Market, you are also helping a family in need with their 1-for-1 membership matching program. You join, they give. Save time and money and shop Thrive Market today. Go to thrivemarket.com/bestofyou for 30% off your first order plus a free $60 gift. That's THRIVE market.com/bestofyou. thrivemarket.com/bestofyou.
So one last story, my kids were late teens and it was summer break. It was like the very first week of summer break. And I worked from home, just typing away and doing a bunch of stuff. And I came downstairs, and when you come down the stairs in our last house, you come down the stairs and you walk through the hallway, and all you see in the hallway is the kitchen island and sink. Okay. So I looked at it and I'm like, oh my, this is a disaster. And I'm like, I did not do this. So, I'm kind of activated, trying to self-regulate. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to ask them to clean up. It's theirs. And so I did. And they're like, yeah, sure, Mom. And they're in there playing video games, having a blast. They're in that kind of like loud. And I'm like, this is good. Telling myself, this is good. They're having fun. This is exactly what I want. And so I said, hey, I'm going to go upstairs and work, and then I'm going to come back down, and I'd like these done. Sure, Mom. So 4 hours later, come down. Yes, we all know the dishes are still there. And when I saw them, so as a type 9, we think that our presence doesn't matter. Our voice doesn't matter. And that's what got activated in me. And so why I'm sharing the story is when you can name the tendencies your type has, you can then treat it like a rumble strip on the highway. So when I was walking down that hallway towards the kitchen, I knew I was activated. And everything in me wanted to be upset, to be hurt. Nobody cares. Nobody respects me. And they're over there in there still having a ball. That is a dream to have teenage kids enjoying one another. So I'm in this very perplexed situation. Like, I want to just yell and scream and you guys should respect me, and that's a big thing for type 9s. But then I felt the rumble strip, kind of gathered myself, and I knew what was going on internally. And so I went in there and I just said, hey guys, I asked that this be cleaned up 4 hours ago. And here's what happens. Here's what happens when you raise your kids to be self-aware and use the Enneagram. They instantly got up, and this isn't all the time. So please do not think the McCords are like this all the time, but this was really beautiful. They got up and they came into the kitchen where I was, and they said, oh, Mom, yes, we're total teenagers. We're so sorry. We just kept playing and totally forgot about time. I can imagine. This is where it got really kind of creepy and awesome. They're like, Mom, we know as a type 9, you probably feel like your voice doesn't matter and that we don't love you. But that is not true. And we'll totally clean it up. You totally matter to us. We just got caught up in the fun. And I just sat there like, is this really happening? Like, I really felt seen and validated and cared for just by them of like validating and acknowledging my viewpoint of the world, not theirs, mine. And it really helped me to go, I am loved. They understand what hurts me. They're apologizing. And I forgave, and we moved forward, and they cleaned up the kitchen. And that is why we want families to use the AWARE acronym along with the gospel, along with the Enneagram, because we can do these hard things together and have a really great relationship, even when it feels turbulent, even in the moment. Good things can come out of it.
I love that. What age do you recommend kids? Because I do think it can be so helpful as a family to have the language. What age do you recommend?
I think helping your kids understand the concept of the Enneagram, help them to understand that we all see the world differently. You can even start there. We all have different things that make us happy or sad. So you can even start at a young age just with the common framework and understanding. But then to really find their type, we cannot name anyone's type. I know we all try to, and it's not wrong for parents to study their kids, to be curious, to have a couple of types in their mind, but please do not type your kids. I know me and my team who are experts in the Enneagram, we've all been like, oh my goodness, I think my kid is this. And then like another season in their life, the developmental stage is like, wait a second, maybe they're this type. And then they change again. You're like, maybe it's that type. And that happens all the time. So hold several numbers loosely. You might clearly see they're not several types, and that's great. Hold a couple of numbers loosely. Keep introducing the concept of the Enneagram, but do it usually in ways that you're not saying the words of the Enneagram, because even with my kids, I had to be very careful to not annoy them, with the Enneagram. Just make it everyday conversation. And then when they're in their teens, that's when they're starting to become aware of themselves. This is usually when parents are freaking out because they're like, you haven't ever been this way your whole life. Well, it's because they were figuring out who they should be. They're like, should I be like that teacher? Should I be like that parent? And so they're kind of not morphing, so to speak, but they're just ebb and flowing in life. And then those teenage years, that personality is like, I don't think so. I'm going to be me, And then the parents are, oh my gosh, what's happening? That's when their personalities aren't necessarily solidifying. It's been there since birth, but it's really coming to fruition. So if they're interested, have them take an Enneagram test, look at the core motivations of all 9 types, and see if they can find the one that has their core motivations. It may take time. It takes 40, 50-year-olds time. It's okay. And they might mistype themselves. That's okay too. But I would say it's in those teenage years that you can really start to see if they're ready and if they're interested in that. But it really has to be their process, their discovery, because it's about why they think, feel, and behave, not the outward behaviors. All kids can rebel, but why are they rebelling? That's the difference. All kids can be perfectionists, but why are they being a perfectionist? So you want to get to the core motivation. So I just want to let parents know it's great that you are curious. It is great that you are studying your kids. Do that, but just hold them loosely until they can name their type.
I love that. That's so good. And you can kind of create that environment of awareness all throughout and then bring that tool in later on.
Yeah. Well, and one of the reasons why we don't want to type our kids really comes back to IFS. And we have a book called More Than Your Number, which is a combination of IFS and the Enneagram, and we call it Enneagram Internal Profile. We use all 9 types at different levels, different degrees. We have parts within us that show up. And so your kids' parts, the different Enneagram types, will pop up from time to time and confuse you. And that's okay. And so that's why you got to wait until they're old enough to really name the core reasons to why they think, feel, and behave.
Yeah, I love that. That's one thing you and I share in common is that overlay with the different parts of us resonate with different. That's so good, Beth. So much wisdom here. It's such a good book. There's so much in it, just practical stuff for moms. And it really does come out of your own lived experience. And you share a lot of that in the book. It's just, I've learned a lot just listening today. I'm like, oh, right. Especially with adult kids, you kind of have to revisit all of that. Things land in a different way on our systems as they get older. where can people find you, find the book, get more resources about how to apply this, give their kids, the Enneagram test? Give us all the scoop on how people can find you.
So the book can be found at enneagramformoms.com. We have an assessment there for parents to take. So that's a really kind of fun way to find your type. And so that you can pre-order the book there or order the book there if it's already out. And then if it's pre-order, you can get pre-order bonuses. So there's lots of goodies that we put together that I wish I had when I was younger. So I really hope people will pre-order, get those PDFs to download, to use. It's really important resources to have. So enneagramformoms.com. Everywhere else, it's Your Enneagram Coach. So, our website, yourenneagramcoach.com, you can meander your way over to that website, Enneagram for Moms, but Your Enneagram Coach website and handles on social media, that's where we're at.
I always refer people to your Enneagram assessment. It's really a good one. It's really robust. It's free. You just put in your email address. So I'll link to all of that in the show notes. Your materials are just amazing. They're super practical. They're all Christ-centered. They're all, steeped in biblical wisdom and just really practical and helpful. I love that you're bringing this into parenting. I think it's so helpful. We need tools in the toolkit, and this is really, I think, one of the most helpful, just all the way around, from the naming to the framing to the bringing that awareness into ourselves and helping our kids grow in that. Thank you so much for all the work that you do, Beth. It's really helped so many people, and I'm just thrilled about this new resource.
Well, I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And I will say once again, your books have been instrumental in my own life. So just as much as I want them to grab this new book, I really want you guys to grab Allison's books as well. I am not kidding. They are great.
Thank you, Beth. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining me for this week's episode of The Best of You. It would mean so much if you take a moment to subscribe. You can go to Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, or wherever you listen to podcasts and click the plus or follow button. That will ensure you don't miss an episode, and it helps get the word out to others. While you're there, I'd love it if you leave your 5-star review. I look forward to seeing you back here next Thursday. And remember, as you become the best of who you are, you honor God, you heal others, and you stay true to your God-given self.